How your success mechanism works.
You are not a machine. But new discoveries in the science of cybernetics all point to the conclusion that your physical brain and nervous system make up a servo-mechanism, which you use and which operates very much like an electronic computer and a mechanical goal-seeking device. Your brain and nervous system constitute a goal-striving mechanism, which operates automatically to achieve a certain goal, very much as a self-aiming torpedo or missile seeks out its target and steers its way to it. Your built-in servo mechanism functions both as a guidance system to automatically steer you in the right direction to achieve certain goals or make correct responses to environment, and also as an electronic brain which can function automatically to solve problems, give you needed answers, and provide new ideas or inspirations. In his book, The Computer and the Brain, Dr. John von Neumann says that the human brain possesses the attributes of both the analog and the digital computer. The word cybernetics comes from a Greek word which means literally the steersman. Servo-mechanisms are so constructed that they automatically steer their way to a goal, target, or answer.
Psycho-Cybernetics, a new concept of how your brain works.
When we conceive of the human brain and nervous system as a form of servo-mechanism operating in accordance with cybernetic principles, we gain a new insight into the why and wherefore of human behavior. I choose to call this new concept Psycho-Cybernetics, the principle of cybernetics as applied to the human brain. I must repeat, Psycho-Cybernetics does not say that man is a machine. Rather, it says that man has a machine which he uses. Let us examine some of the similarities between mechanical servo mechanisms and the human brain.
The two general types of servo mechanisms.
Servo mechanisms are divided into two general types. One, where the target, goal, or answer is known, and the objective is to reach it or accomplish it. And two, where the target or answer is not known, and the objective is to discover or locate it. The human brain and nervous system operates in both ways. An example of the first type is the self-guided torpedo or the interceptor missile. The target or goal is known, an enemy ship or plane. The objective is to reach it. Such machines must know the target they are shooting for. They must have some sort of propulsion system which propels them forward in the general direction of the target. They must be equipped with sense organs, radar, sonar, heat perceptors, etc., which bring information from the target. These sense organs keep the machine informed when it is on the correct course, positive feedback, and when it commits an error and gets off course, negative feedback. The machine does not react or respond to positive feedback. It is doing the correct thing already, and just keeps on doing what it is doing. There must be a corrective device, however, which will respond to negative feedback. When the negative feedback informs the mechanism that it is off the beam, so to speak, too far to the right, the corrective mechanism automatically causes the rudder to move so that it will steer the machine back to the left. If it overcorrects and heads too far to the left, this mistake is made known through negative feedback, and the corrective device moves the rudder so it will steer the machine back to the right. The torpedo then accomplishes its goal by going forward, making errors, and continually correcting them. By a series of zigzags, it literally gropes its way to the goal. Dr. Norbert Wiener, who pioneered in the development of goal-seeking mechanisms in World War II, believes that something very similar to the foregoing happens in the human nervous system whenever you perform any purposeful activity, even in such a simple goal-seeking situation as picking up a pack of cigarettes from the table. We are able to accomplish the goal of picking up the cigarettes because of an automatic mechanism, and not by will and forebrain thinking alone. All that the forebrain does is to select the goal, trigger it into action by desire, and feed information to the automatic mechanism so that your hand continually corrects its course. In the first place, says Dr. Wiener, only an anatomist would know all the muscles involved in picking up the cigarettes. And if you knew, you would not consciously say to yourself, I must contract my shoulder muscle to elevate my arm, now I must contract my triceps to extend my arm, etc. You just go ahead and pick up the cigarettes, and are not conscious of issuing orders to individual muscles, nor of computing just how much contraction is needed. When you select the goal and trigger it into action, an automatic mechanism takes over. First of all, you have picked up cigarettes or performed similar movements before. Your automatic mechanism has learned something of the correct response needed. Next, your automatic mechanism uses feedback data furnished to the brain by your eyes, which tells it the degree to which the cigarettes are not picked up. This feedback data enables the automatic mechanism to continually correct the motion of your hand until it is steered to the cigarettes. In a baby just learning to use its muscles, the correction of the hand in reaching for a rattle is very obvious. The baby has little stored information to draw upon. Its hand zigzags back and forth and gropes obviously as it reaches. It is characteristic of all learning that as learning takes place, correction becomes more and more refined. We see this in a person just learning to drive a car, who overcorrects and zigzags back and forth across the street. Once, however, a correct or successful response has been accomplished, it is remembered for future use. The automatic mechanism then duplicates this successful response on future trials. It has learned how to respond successfully. It remembers its successes, forgets its failures, and repeats the successful action without any further conscious thought, or as a habit.
How your brain finds answers to problems.
Now let us suppose that the room is dark, so that you cannot see the cigarettes. You know, or hope, there is a package of cigarettes on the table, along with a variety of other objects. Instinctively, your hand will begin to grope back and forth, performing zigzag motions, or scanning, rejecting one object after another until the cigarettes are found and recognized. This is an example of the second type of servo-mechanism. Recalling a name temporarily forgotten is another example. A scanner in your brain scans back through your stored memories until the correct name is recognized. An electronic brain solves problems in much the same way. First of all, a great deal of data must be fed into the machine. This stored or recorded information is the machine's memory. A problem is posed to the machine. It scans back through its memory until it locates the only answer which is consistent with and meets all the conditions of the problem. problem and answer together constitute a whole situation or structure. When part of the situation or structure, the problem, is given to the machine, it locates the only missing parts, or the right size brick, so to speak, to complete the structure. The more that is learned about the human brain, the more closely it resembles, insofar as function is concerned, a servo-mechanism. For example, Dr. Wilder Penfield, director of the Montreal Neurological Institute, recently reported at a meeting of the National Academy of Sciences that he had discovered a recording mechanism in a small area of the brain which apparently faithfully records everything that a person has ever experienced, observed, or learned. During a brain operation in which the patient was fully awake, Dr. Penfield happened to touch a small area of the cortex with a surgical instrument. At once, the patient exclaimed that she was reliving an incident from her childhood, which she had consciously forgotten. Further experiments along this line brought the same results. When certain areas of the cortex were touched, patients did not merely remember past experiences, they relived them, experiencing as very real all the sights, sounds, and sensations of the original experience. It was just as if past experience had been recorded on a tape recorder and played back. Just how a mechanism as small as the human brain can store such a vast amount of information is still a mystery. British neurophysicist W. Gray Walter has said that at least 10 billion electronic cells would be needed to build a facsimile of man's brain. These cells would occupy about 1.5 million cubic feet, and several additional millions of cubic feet would be needed for the nerves or wiring. Power required to operate it would be 1 billion watts.